Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So today we're going to talk about the final boss of the Vow of the Disciple raid. We're going to talk about the first disciple of the Witness, Rhulk. Who is he? What is his origin story, and how did he become the first disciple? Today, we're diving into some lore that is highlighting some of the oldest times we've ever seen in Destiny's history. It's lore so ancient that you're going to hear about peoples and places that appear nowhere else in Destiny's canon. So buckle up, it's time to cast ourselves back to a time when there was a planet called Lubrae. A planet with a pair of suns, one a brilliant blue, the other constantly held in shadow. A planet and a civilization that seemed to have been blessed by the Traveler. A planet and a civilization that inevitably would die. For all of this to make sense, we should go ahead and give a little bit of context from what we know about Rhulk before we really dive into this story. So, let's go ahead and talk about Lubrae, the planet of his birth. Lubrae is a planet within a binary star system, in other words, a solar system with two suns. Lubrae's suns are interesting though. One of them is blue, which is fairly not typical, but it's something that happens within the universe. However, the other sun is not something that I understand, at very least. It's what is constantly referred to as a dark sun, one that radiates dark light. I'm not sure what this means, but I have a bit of a theory. You see, there's something else that made Lubrae pretty remarkable, which is it appears that it was visited by the Traveler. We'll read more on that in a bit, but if that's the case, which seems incredibly likely given the stated descriptions of what happened in the lore book, I think it's fair to say that the Traveler might have arrived in the system and stabilized this black sun. I don't think the black sun is a black sun at all. I personally am of the opinion that it's a singularity. And the thing is, this isn't at all unprecedented. In the Books of Sorrow, the Traveler stabilized the singularity at the Giftmast and allowed the 10 worlds of the Harmony to live within its accretion disk. So this isn't even slightly outside of the realm of possibility. I think it's worth questioning this because it isn't clear, but I struggle to think of an alternative for what it could be. What I think is worth talking about, though, is how the planet survived being this close to the proximity of a black hole before the Traveler arrived. So, yeah, I really don't know what this second black sun is. Apparently, though, of the two suns, it was not the one that was life-giving. It was something that helped to keep the planet in a constant state of limbo. The black sun created a deadly night of sorts, one that constantly killed, and the blue sun created a more livable and safer day. With the arrival of the Traveler, the Lubraean society began to evolve. They were previously a nomadic people that had wandered the wilderness of their world and had been forced to survive amongst the dangerous fauna and flora of the planet. Now their society split into those who wandered and those that settled. The settlers created a great city of marvelous technologies with the assistance of the Traveler, and they used their power to live permanently in the light of the blue sun. When the Traveler had left them, the occupants of the city had formed into a regime that Rhulk described as cruel. They would regularly send warriors known as stalkers to hunt the nomadic peoples outside the city, and they were generally ruthless in their pursuits. It's not clear how, but apparently there was some kind of barrier in the form of an abyss that was created by the Lubraeans of the regime. This was a barrier that surrounded the city and its controlled territories, and made it harder to access from the wildlands where the roamers and wanderers were found. It's not clear precisely what form this abyss took, but it feels as though it's more of like a canyon or a moat. We're not given an extensive amount of detail at what's at the bottom of it, but it doesn't seem like it's filled with an ocean's worth of water, so maybe the giant moat idea is a little bit off. Hopefully this is all the context you'll need for most of the understanding of Rhulk's story to really fit into perspective and place. But there is one last thing I want to point out to you all before we dive into this lorebook, and that's to do with syntax and what it indicates. Throughout this book, Rhulk and the Witness are discussing the past. Rhulk is persistently being shown flashbacks of his time on Lubrae, moments in the past that he remembers clear as day thanks to the intervention of the power of the Witness. And so, things are going to look a little bit different. Martin is gonna hopefully be able to edit this on screen so it's a little bit easier for you to see, but normal sentences that indicate that something is being stated or said by Rulk will show up as just normal sentences, looking like this. Sentences with these dashes at their beginnings and ends indicate that this is something being stated by the witness, and if a sentence has brackets around it, it indicates that it's an event that occurred in the past and that this is a flashback that's being seen. We'll be going through this whole story entry by entry, so buckle in, get some popcorn, and remember that handy guide for what's happening. It will help make things a little bit clearer, and will give you all an idea of what's actually going on. First though, we need to go ahead and start with a little context from Rulk himself, because the story actually starts where it ends, with the death of Lubre.
The Upended. A title suitable for that which turns worlds upside down. When I was still uninitiated, I would stand guard at my post. I would look to the sky and see the two suns of my Lubre. One eternally shaded in the dark, the other always a brilliant blue. And in them, I had seen the folly of our kind. A fear of something we believed bigger than us, and a reliance on that which kept us. That blue sun that we harnessed our power from. A simple reversal of that power cracked the blue in half, shut it off, and Lubre died. I did not know it at the time, but it was necessary. And now that Savathun has trapped me within these walls, it will be necessary again. My witness. Whether I survive Savathun's betrayal or not, the Upended will ensure we salvage our perfect goal. The final abyss awaits us all.
This was the path that Rulk would walk. However, before he walked it, he walked in darkness, and in fear, and in hatred, with a desire for revenge and a need for bloodshed, all born out of a single place: family. One day he would abandon all of them and would become a faithful servant of the Witness, but the journey that led him there would begin here, in the moments after the death of his planet, with confusion and panic. What have I done? Noise. Fear. How? Mothers did sadness. It. Fathers come hate to children. This sorrow forgive. Displeasure me. Chaos. Lubre convulses. The sky shatters. This was the cost of justice? An enclosed cell. Introspection. Subjugation incoming. Life upended. You made me do this. You made me do this. I made me do this. You made me do this. Father's face. Mother's face. Empty. Clan broken. Blood pouring. Silence. Eerie. It was them versus us. Then it was us versus them. I ignored who us was. I forgot who them was. Our city. An abyss surrounds, Lubrean made, infinite, or just empty. Divides, silently conquers. Ignorant contentment. Love. I was cared for. My clan. Safety. Dual fire in the sky. Blue light. Salvation. Dark light. Death. Safety. My clan. My family. And who cares for you now? There are none left. Do you desire it still? Once. I did once. And you returned it? Our wildlands. An abyss separates, Lubrean made, infinite, beautiful. A father, him. A son, me. His arm on my shoulder. Assurances of a collaborative future. A teardown of us versus them. Love shown. Guards crossed the abyssal bridge. Not guards, stalkers we call them, salivating after a group of wanderers, ready to watch them be torn apart. My anger flares. I move to confront the stalkers. Father's hand holds me back. We lock eyes. His communicates sympathy, pain, regret. He won't let me reach the wanderers. Their blood spills. A lesson in inaction. Father wants me to see what he's seen, to feel the powerlessness he's felt, to feel insignificant, to accept the status quo. You were never capable of returning it. Slaughter. Our eyes meet again. Father's saddened, apologetic, afraid, not of the stalkers returning across the bridge, but of me. He sees not the same in my eyes, only confusion, anger at everything. You have your answer. It is not our answer to have, but yours to embrace. Embrace? Why? Hello? This was not Rolk's first communication with the witness, but it would be the first of many times that they would sit and talk. It would be a terrible moment for Rolk to contemplate the actions that he had taken against his homeworld and against his people. Actions motivated by anger, and then by rage, and then by a desire for revenge. At first, these actions would be ones that he regretted. He regretted them under the obvious circumstances that anyone might. To put it simply, it's much easier to appreciate what you have when it's gone, and the complacency that you persistently fall into is often a trap that we spring upon ourselves. Rolk's loss would be further explored, as he and the witness sat and spoke in this abyss after apocalypse. And what more of this family of yours? They're gone. Dead. All of them. They don't matter anymore. Is that so? What do you even want to know? You want to know more about my father, the Lubraean traitor? Or perhaps my mother, another Lubraean traitor? I should have seen it coming. I could tell you about my clan, and my clan father and clan mother, also Lubraean traitors. They were all city dwellers once, loyalists to the regime before exiling themselves. Do you see now what I see? We see unfinished business. We see a child seeking validation. We see great loss. Content. Together. A fire burns bright. Our cavern is alight. We hide within it to keep safe. The hazy sky is outside, and surely there are some without shelter this night. Those who will be torn apart by the wild, by the umbral sun, by those Lubraean guards who call themselves stalkers, pursuing us on behalf of a brutal regime. Long ago, there were only wanderers, surviving a harsh landscape covered with shifting, bloodthirsty flora. Surviving wildlife can flatten themselves until they are practically invisible, perfect at going unnoticed until they've split your skin and organs apart. And now, we are divided, split by a shimmering orb that appeared briefly in our sky, as if having two suns isn't already crowded enough. What of this shimmering orb? It was before my time. It came, we evolved, it left. Left us with a mess. Those who believed in good progress. Those who didn't. Those who dwelled in the city, controlled it, filled it only with the light of the Sapphiric sun, and endless day to keep the horrors of night away, revealing the horrors among us. They pushed progress for the sake of the few, while the rest of us took our chances under the alternating suns. And this shimmering orb you now see before you. There it is. shining like silver in the sky, like the stories told. Providing hope, then leaving everything to those who desire control but lack commitment and understanding. Look at them now. Bodies, limbs, vaporized remains, a shattered sapphire, Lubrae irreparable, an umbral sun, still shining darkness. What have I done? What was necessary? The Witness probes more into the family and civilization of the Lubraeans, as well as Rhulk's family. This is again one of those moments where Rhulk is being forced to confront an uncomfortable past, a past that leaves him with more questions than answers at first. Why should such a cruel regime have been tolerated? Why was it so simple for his father to stand by and watch innocents as they suffered? Why did their people have to be blessed, or perhaps cursed, by the sphere that seems so clearly to have been the Traveler, the sphere that divided their civilization and effectively birthed the regime? The Witness is deliberately provoking these memories and these questions. The reason why will become apparent soon. As a small note, Lubraean clan society, from what can be read in this lorebook, often designates a clan mother and clan father, but I think there are two possibilities for what this might be. The first of which is that it's more akin to the role of a chieftain or matriarch and patriarch pair, given that fathers and mothers are mentioned separately, implying a personal mother and father and a more clan-oriented father and mother. They appear to have a distinction between the biological parents of the Lubraeans and those who are in fact parents, but parents in more of a broader clan sense. However, there is the other possibility, to simply designate a parent within the clan, as opposed to the biological parent of the one in question. It's never made clear which of these it is. At certain points it seems that clan mother and clan father are used generally to designate a broad group of individuals that have that familial role that aren't necessarily part of the family, and in other instances it seems to refer to an individual or a pair of individuals. Either way, it's not clear, and these are assumptions at best, but they are the best ones that I can draw from reading this lorebook. Tell me what you think down below in the comments, but more importantly, read on. Here, the Witness will continue to show more of Rhulk's past to him, and the harsh conditions that his clan had to endure, not just at the hands of the regime, but also at the hands of their world. We survive. We give back to the land. We help those in need. They come for us anyway. The regime raids our camp. No logical explanation for those they kill. Clan mothers, clan fathers, children. They kill us without purpose. A red spattering, courtesy of a stalker, spreads across my face. Goodbye, Fent. Goodbye, clan uncle. I am covered in red. It's all I see. It spills out of these stalkers like an endless crimson wave as I face them. Their valuables and instruments become mine. A glaive of my own. A sapphiric converter. Father is carried off. Not killed. Not yet, anyway. Not many of us are left. Mother and the others look at me with concern. Not for my injuries, but for those who suffered at my hands. They disrespected your power. They were weak, and yet you still saved them when you could. The stalkers attack us under the umbral sun during a migration. They know how to find us. They know we move at twilight, the space between when stalkers hunt and the planet kills. We barely survive. At the safe house they dance and sing, not in celebration but in admiration of their continued existence and in memoriam for those lost. I sit in anger. I hunger for revenge. Loss meant little to our kind. It was too rampant. Are you sure it wasn't just you? You know not what you ask. I am a boy. I hold the furry little yacht in my hands as it wriggles before pulling it apart. It separates from its skin with ease. What is this worthless, pointless thing? Why show me this? This you have already seen. experienced. Surely you can handle it again. This worthless, pointless thing. It dies so unceremoniously. Did it even matter? Did it ever matter at all? The children weep for their lost pet, but I feel powerful. I feel... You know what you are. You always knew. Mother and the others look at me with concern, not for my injuries, but for those who suffered at my hands. And they are right to do so. Tearing their bodies to pieces brought only joy. What am I? I'm a monster. I knew it then, I know it now. Not a monster. A savior. It is here that the witness begins to reveal the sword logic and its principles to Rulk, principles that unknowingly he has been following for much of his life. Those who were too weak to stand against his might were liberated from existence, and in that moment, at least according to the witness, a morally just action had been taken. This is what the witness has always espoused, the need for life to not be a waste, so that there is no unnecessary suffering within the universe, no suffering that does not result in stronger life that can survive, in spite of the suffering that might be brought about by the death of those who were deemed unworthy of existence. The witness deems this action to be one of utmost mercy. To be clear, it's not. Rulk, in this moment, sees the way his peers look to him, and understands that they see him as a monster. However, the witness assures him that he is not, and the visions of his past continue. In this moment in his life, Rulk is driven by the hatred of the regime that has taken his father and killed many of his family and clan. But then, something changed. This is the most important moment. This is the moment when Rulk embraced a new kind of hatred. Father, it's been a year since you were taken, but we have not been attacked since. I know the stalkers still watch the clan, but I survive alone these days, ousted for being the only one brave enough to act. A liability, they called me. We will see what they say when I bring you back, if you still live. Every Umbral Sun, I walk the abyssal perimeter with the help of the Sapphiric Converter's attunement to our great sun, providing me light in the dark. The stalkers don't expect me, so they don't see me, and the glaive, a tool of the regime, which I have named after you, Relicsword, makes eviscerating them that much easier. I kill many looking for a sign of you, wash my hands with their blood in hopes of your continued existence. I have been lost without your guidance, unsure of what I am, who I am, what I am meant to do. And now, as you stand before me draped in the insignias of the very regime that took you, I am confident that you have no answers. As you call your fellow stalkers to overwhelm me, to bind me, to carry me into the dense, unending city of Lubrae, I am confident that you are a coward. As you testify at my trial that I should not be put to death for what the regime claims are immeasurable crimes, but should instead serve alongside the stalkers, alongside you, killing wanderers, annihilating clans, I am confident you are an opportunist. What about Mother, our clan? What about down with the regime? What about biding our time? Or is this another lesson in inaction, sparing ourselves from the absolute worst so that we can barely live, barely survive? I am confident, Father, you will die by my hand. Relic, Rulk's father, had turned traitor to the regime once, and stood in opposition to them as he and his former family exiled themselves. He betrayed that regime, and now he has betrayed his old clan once again, joining them once more. It's not clear if Rulk's interpretation of this is correct. Maybe there is more complexity to the double-crossing that the father has committed. But what is not unclear is how this made Rulk feel. Rulk felt betrayal. His bitterness towards life and his people was built on this moment. It was forged in this crucible, in the fires of a determination born of a need for revenge. Perhaps if his father had not spared him, Rulk would never have destroyed their world. But the blade of compassion is sometimes not seen until it is too late. This new motivation is what the witness would compel Rulk to confront next. The regime took all that mattered to you, and yet you blamed your father. The regime never lied about who they were. They were brutal, yes, but honest. Honesty means something to you? It meant everything. Interesting. And so in the face of your father, the hypocrite, you leaned on the regime that enslaved you both instead, that killed so many of your kind. The regime did not enslave me. It freed me. The regime puts the glaive back in my hand, the one I named in honor of you. I have renamed it Relixbane, and no matter how you try to hide it, this scares you, just as I knew it would. I'd be lying if I said I didn't take pleasure in this, but I do. Just as I take pleasure in the constant sapphiric light, and the roof over my head, the consistency in regular meals. The regime lives well, comfortable. The city may be overcrowded, the laws may be strict, the few may have all the power, but at least we're not out there trying fruitlessly to survive. At least we're not out there scared, cold and alone, wondering if we'll live to see the next rise of either sun. But most importantly, Father, nobody denies me my thirst, my lust for blood. They encourage it, feed it, and they have begun to show me truths about the Wanderers, about what the glimmering orb encouraged. You always claimed the hands of the regime were stained red, but you never showed me yours until now. How dare you stand before me now and confess your disloyalty to the regime? How dare you lie to me again? You may have overwhelmed me this time, escaped my grasp, but I am coming for you. I will end this. The story of Rulk's father and his constantly changing loyalties are interesting to say the least. It really isn't clear what's going on here. But if one day we do find out more about Rulk's father, maybe there is something more that can be revealed about Rulk's past. Something doesn't seem right here. The constant changing loyalties of Rulk's father seem to indicate to me some kind of outside influence, or at very least a complex agenda that needs more exploration. Either way, it didn't matter to Rulk. Honesty mattered more. And even though the brutality of the regime was on full display, with Relixbane in his hand, he would be able to sit and honestly carve out his intentions upon the very fabric of this world. Bloody intentions. But in reliving those moments, Rulk would still suffer, and for but a moment would still feel doubt. Stop. Why? I don't want to do this. I don't want to relive this. Most would die for the opportunity to retread their greatest moments. Great moments end in triumph, not mass extinction. In the end, what mattered? The end? No, we are so very far from the end. You are not ready to taste true glory. You may not yet be familiar with the concept of metamorphosis, but we assure you, you are experiencing it right now. You were once free to roam your little box, but lacked wings to fly out of it. And so you grew them, the little larvae that you were, wrapped in a cocoon. Now you need only cut yourself from it. But to do so, you must leave behind that which made you weak, retaining only that which makes you strong. But my world! Shattered. Recreated here, for you. Reformed all around me. every painstaking detail. The suns, the abyss, the regime, Lubre. Every painful memory. My clan, my family, Kloa, clanfather, Kisa, clanmother, Kita, sister, Thruna, mother, Hrelik, father. Their heads in my hands. Love for them made you weak. Power over them made you strong. Upon reflection, you are filled with regret, believing yourself to be under the spell of the regime, believing your actions in their tenure to be wrong. But morality, oh dear Rulk, is subjective. And now that you are all that remains of Lubre, isn't it time you made the rules? Isn't it time you looked back upon your life with pride? After all, your actions brought you to us, and only we can help you emerge from your cocoon. We? What even are you? We are your salvation. We are your judgment. And soon we will be your witness. This moment where Rulk shed his family's blood, this moment where he cut all ties that bound him to them and embraced a true form of brutality, embraced strength instead of compassion. This is what the witness believes is Rulk's greatest moment. Rulk is a murderer, a vicious one at that, and this is the end result of his work, the death of all he'd ever known, and of the countless thousands he'd never met. The witness might be correct about the subjective nature of morality, but only its distinctly barbaric sword logic-driven code might find a moment such as this one to be morally virtuous. But what would lead to this moment of wholesale slaughter? The answer was simple. Betrayal, but also for Rulk, a moment of compassion that nearly led to his downfall. A moment of compassion that was exploited by those who no longer wished to see him live. A moment where his family betrayed him first. Your father, he feared your anger, feared you, because he knew what I could become. He knew what burdens flowed through my veins. He too felt them, lived them. I am a boy. My father skewers 3 stalkers in front of me. His eyes are crimson, his sharpened teeth bared as he moves to bite their heads off. For a time, my father embodied what I felt inside. I looked up to him, believed I could confide in him. He felt a bloodlust, and he despised the regime. But as they did with me, the others began to see him as a liability. So he softened and softened, until, in my opinion, he degraded into the Lubrain equivalent of fetid rot. And so you treated him as such. I stare into the face of my father, his severed, shattered head held in my hand, dripping with what once stayed within. A consequence of weakness, his own. In search of my father, I reach the final hiding place of my clan, devoid of active life, as were the rest, but filled with tokens, trinkets, heirlooms. They left in a hurry, all who remained, and I know where desperation takes them. The same place it took me. The Abyss. The Abyss. The artificial crack in Lubre, separating the desired from the undesired. A crevice devoid of all but a strand of concrete to connect the halves. There, amongst the brush that conceals those approaching, I find them, trembling, unsure of what would come next regardless of encouragement from father. He seeks to ferry them into the city of Lubre unnoticed, through the tunnels below. How he plans this, I do not know. but I do not intend to find out. My emergence from the deep forest was not unexpected, or so my father claims. Mother is here, clan mother too. I do not see many other familiar faces. They have been worn down, beaten, broken, in search of a forever home. I must give it to them. I must. But they plead. They reminisce. They appeal. They claim to love, to care. Mother brushes my arm, touch designed to evoke my inner goodness, one I am supposed to have forgotten. She apologizes for my exile. Then, Father apologizes. For everything. For the furious example he set. For earlier inaction. He wants to do right. He wants our clan to live a comfortable life. I see sadness. I see truth. I see regret. Perhaps this is the way. Perhaps my time with the regime has clouded my judgment. And perhaps my tumble into this abyssal chasm is the result of my own overwhelming catharsis. Or perhaps it is the cost of naivete. Their faces grow smaller as I plunge deeper, but I can still make out their expressions. No longer do any of them, the adults, the children, no longer do they show regret or pain or sorrow. Their faces show relief. Rolk fell into the abyss between the lands of the city and the lands of the Wanderers. It appears, from what we read, that he might have been pushed. Whether or not this was the case, the looks upon the faces of his family sealed their fate. They cared only about their survival. The honeyed words they had poured into his ear were poison. Poison meant to lower his guard, to lower his glaive, to make him vulnerable. They didn't care for Rolk. As he tumbled down to die, the truth of his isolation became apparent, the depth of his betrayal evident, and the cost of his naivety witnessed by him and his clan alone. Or at least, that is what Rolk believed at first. For there was another who bore witness to this moment. Lying broken at the bottom of the abyss, Rolk was visited by a shadow of death, a shadow he would come to call his sovereign. It is here, in the abyss, that Rolk first met the Witness. I should have died, and yet it was there in the darkness of the abyss that you became truly alive. I lie amongst swamp and rock and ruin. The abyss is not unending after all. The wrathful sound of unchecked nature draw close. The wrathful sounds of unchecked nature draw close. Down here it is dark, and in the dark they thrive. I am broken. And now you are unbroken. I am unbroken. I see your luster, disarming these beasts who dared to approach, their flesh melting in your presence. And we see yours. I rise, broken and then unbroken. What is this thing that grants life? We are opportunity. And I am ruin. And what am I meant to do? Ruin. Your voice subsides, but your luster remains. It is a familiar one, like that of our umbral sun. Relixbane lies nearby, broken in two. You mend it with your luster. It is whole again, but even more so than before, as if imbued with the wrath of vengeful gods. Miles above, I see the axis that sits between our bright city of Lubrae and our shadowed wildlands. By now, my clan must be inside the city. I pocket your luster before I thrust my glaive into the sheer wall that separates me from my vengeance. I lift myself with one hand gripping the slate, then another thrust of the glaive, raising me ever closer towards my goal. No more chances. No more wavering. No more weakness. It might seem remarkable and perhaps even out of character for the witness to have saved one such as Rulk. But within Rulk, it perhaps saw the potential for a true understanding of the sword's logic. With this, it took the rare action of sparing one life so that 1 billion more might be taken with its sharpened new shape. But this gift would be one well earned in slaughter and bloodshed. With the power of the darkness and the reforged Relixbane in hand, known as Relixbane no longer, Rulk would ascend from darkness and would be as a paragon of slaughter. None would survive. It would be then, on that day, as Rulk climbed at long last out of that deep, dark pit, that the suns would be shattered, and Lubrae would die. I know what happened next. I do not need to see it again. I rend Mother's flesh. Do you not hear me? I remove Father's head from his neck. This is madness. None escape my wrath. Not even the little ones, not even civilians. The city watches in horror. They know what I am. This must stop. Their faces inform only of relief. Stop! Their faces inform only of relief. I command you! Their faces inform only of relief. Ah! The Sapphic sun implodes. Please! Lubrae is cracking. Lubrae is shattering. Lubrae is upended. What have I done? I can't. Your luster, my glaive. Relive it. No! They've turned against me, my regime. They've perished by my hand, my clan. They call me a monster. They put me in a cage. They seek my execution, but your luster, I see it, even though they took you from me. You guide my hand. You free me from these chains. You find me again. You return to me my glaive, no longer Relixbane, serving only one final purpose. Lubrae's ruin. A shattered sky. A planet convulsing. Our existence upended. Their folly was their intended salvation. Siphoning light from the Sapphic sun itself. I use your luster, turn their technology against them, like a backfired pistol. After serving them, protecting them, fighting for them, suffering for them. A shattered sky, a planet convulsing, tearing apart. One Lubraean remains. Me. But not for long. What have I done? I stare into the abyss. It has opened, truly opened this time. It shows me what lies beneath. Death. I drop your luster. I drop Lubrae's ruin. I let myself fall. And then, and then I am here with you, my witness. And what do you feel now, devoid of family, devoid of the regime, devoid of Lubrae? What do you feel here in our embrace, now that they are gone and you are left? Rulk opens his eyes, crawls forth through the blackened solution that engulfed him all this time, emerges from the wall of obsidian-like miasma to find his luster, to find Lubrae's ruin. Taking them, he rises to his feet. What do you feel, my child? Relief. Rulk was liberated from betrayal, but also from the trappings of civilization that brought him to the point of breaking. The last son of Lubrae used the Lubraean technology and power of the darkness to crack the sun in half, and thus the planet died. as did all those upon it.
When I stood on that precipice, watching the only world I knew collapse under its own weight, I was prepared for the splendor of abyssal eternity. But you brought me forth, my witness, freed me from the world that imprisoned me, made me see the ultimate truth, one I could never see alone. That on my planet Lubre, who I was, where I was, what I believed mattered, all amounted to absolute insignificance. I keep this mural not as some worthless sentimental reminder of what I lost, but of the opposite, of what I gained. Power. Truth of the inconsequence of most. Control over the universal strings of fate. For all this, I am eternally grateful, my witness.
Rorke's liberation from the trappings of civilization awakened him to what he might have seemed to believe was an enlightened perspective. He would begin to see a larger picture. The ultimate fate of the universe was now his concern. Any weaklings that lay before him on Lubre's shattered surface were now nothing more than the result of a necessary, or perhaps even merciful slaughter. From this point on, Rorke would make it his mission to serve the grand vision of the Witness, one that had given him purpose as his civilization and his family had consumed his own. A purpose that would lead to an all-consuming void, one that would never cease, and one that would never be satiated. He would become the first disciple of the Witness, and from his deeds untold billions of lives would be lost. Thousands upon thousands of worlds would be put to the torch, and the last son of Lubre would make his mark upon time itself. But this was not the end of Rorke's story. In his time, there was a great failure that he would have to contend with, a failure of his own making that would ultimately lead to his downfall, a failure that would leave him stranded with a purpose of serving and assisting a supposed ally, one that would lead him to the oh-so-familiar shores of a throne world we have walked. He would soon come to assist the Witch Queen, Savathun. And that is the story we shall explore next. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know it's a long one, and I hope you enjoyed. This long-form content tends to do very well, and if you did enjoy it, go ahead and let me know by leaving a like, and leaving your thoughts down below in the comments section. Of course, if you want more Destiny content, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.